Welcome. I'm so excited to be here, to be meeting you in this channel. So I hope that you are ready for this next interview. I'm going to bring up our guest in a short while. So I would like to say that thank you for being here, joining us in this interview. So those of you who are already here in the studio, please just key in your comments there, say hi or hello, so that I know that you're there. I'm so excited because in a short while I'll be introducing Michael to you, and this is going to be an awesome interview because one is the wealth of knowledge that he's able to share. The other is I know that hi, Danielle. So I see that you're there. And Izam, you're there. Thank you. Kramen Low, hi. Good to see you here. I'm excited that not just we are having this interview. Hi, Wendy. We are having this interview from Michael. He's all the way in Grand Junction in Colorado. We are having people joining us from all over the world. We've got from just now, I was just texting with my friends in Indonesia. Now, Romulo from Brazil is already online here. And I'm expecting some more friends from the Philippines, from Hong Kong, and also from Egypt. So that's very exciting. Yes, thank you, Izam. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate that you are here. Romulo, is Ines joining us as well, or is she also in front of the screen? There you are, Ines. Good to see all of you here. Wow. Now, we are already at the time that we are going to start the show, and because of that, without further ado, let's begin this interview. So welcome to the interview series on going beyond survival to long-term sustainable holistic wealth. So thank you for being here. In this series, as you may be aware, those of you who have been joining me in this series for the last 7 interviews, we invite experts from various backgrounds to inform about the impact of the crisis from their expertise, because this crisis that initially presents to us as a health crisis because of the lockdown and all that is affecting us in all areas of our lives. So that's why we had someone from mental, emotional health coming in, someone from the medical. We have Professor Dr. Mafauzi from the medical field. We have Rajan Devadesan from financial, and we had Muazzam from the banking industry, and we had Ibu Rose from parenting. Then we had Ibu Anim from business sustainability. And yesterday we had Ayat from real estate investment. So COVID, the crisis is impacting us in different ways, and that is why we have different people from different expertise. So this is what I call inviting people with value, with expertise, to share valuable information, because what we need to do in order to navigate out of this crisis to become stronger, what we need to do is we need to rely on the right information. So that's why I invite people from their various expertise, because there is so much misinformation and disinformation out there. So that's why this evening I'm really excited to welcome here to talk on the 10 secrets about wealth creation. And our guest for this evening is Dr. L. Michael Hall. He is the co-founder and executive director of the International Society of Neuro-Semantics. Neuro-Semantics facilitates the actualizing of the highest values and visions in people and their best performances. We model human excellence and then consult, train, and coach for self-actualizing individuals, leaders, and companies. Now, Michael is somebody that I truly admire and respect, because for the last more than 12 years, close to 15 years, I've been learning tremendous amount of knowledge and expertise in the related to neurosemantics, meta coaching, and that is why I feel so excited to bring him to meet you in a short while. Now, I remember one of the times that I was attending a program, and somebody asked him, Michael, what do you consider yourself? Because his productivity is very high. When I talk about very high, I'm talking about authoring more than 40 books. So and I remember him saying this, and it stuck with me. He said he considers himself as a researcher and modeler. And I was thinking, I thought about that very, very long. And yes, that was really a succinct way of explaining what he does, because it is through his modeling that he presented to the world the meta states model, the meta coaching system, resilience, and wealth creations. And that is why it gives me great pleasure for this evening to invite Dr. Michael Hall to present on the 10 secrets about wealth creation. Michael, good morning to you. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you.
So I hope you've had your coffee this morning.
Yes. Yes.
I was just thinking that somehow or the other, not by any design, but I've bookended the series of interviews with two gentlemen from Colorado. Scott Friedman started off. Scott is from Denver, Colorado, and you are the one who's closing off the whole series, also from Colorado. So that was a big coincidence. So again, thank you to all who are here. I see Danielle, Sean, Irfan, Basian, and Marilyn. You are here, Ines and Homulo. So without further ado, I'd like to just dive in, because I know there is so much that you can share. The only problem for you is to what not to say. because you have so much that you can talk about on this subject. So I'd just like to start off with the relevance frame. So what is the relevance of this topic in the context of the crisis that we are currently facing, and what benefits that the audience will be able to get from this interview?
Well, probably the key relevance right now is how many people are struggling to make ends meet, especially if they're not considered one of the essential jobs, which is really a whole nother subject. Training and coaching ought to be as essential as eating and drinking.
Yeah.
If they keep the grocery stores open for the body, they should keep training sessions open for the mind. But during the epidemic, a lot of people are struggling because there's not as much income coming in.
Yeah.
And so now the subject of money comes up.
Yeah.
And how do I manage my money? And how do I manage in times when there's very little to work with?
Okay. So that's why that we are looking into the subject of wealth in order to create wealth. So when we talk about wealth, so what does it take to create wealth? And probably starting off with what's wealth anyway, because for most people it's just that money bit. So maybe we can start off from there.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go. Because the other relevance thing is wealth, synonyms of it is richness or fullness or abundance, or when it comes to wealth creation, doing little and getting lots in return.
Doing little and getting a lot in return.
Yeah. So in terms of productivity, wealth is being productive, so that if you invest $1, you get 2 or 10 or 100. That would be wealth creation. And so getting big results from little effort. Well, that's another definition of efficiency.
Okay.
Being effective and efficient. So wealth is also an internal state of being able to create richness in your life. So it's way beyond money. In fact, money is just a sign, one benchmark for wealth. And so I think of reading a book. If I read a book, I want to get a lot of wealth out of it. I want to get a lot of results mentally, emotionally. I want to be able to write and use it to stimulate thoughts in articles, books, trainings. So someone who doesn't have a wealth mentality reads a book and says, okay, got a point, and it's gone. So I read every book twice. If I buy a book, I read it twice, because I'm going to suck out of that all the value and the richness and the abundance. So wealth mentality is whether it's a book, whether it is taking a walk, whether it is how you sleep. So is your sleep producing more results, getting more effects, little effort, big results? So wealth is everywhere. And it's way beyond just money.
And why is it that in a world of plenty, many people don't feel wealthy, and especially in this in this crisis that we're facing, a lot of people are not feeling wealthy.
Yeah. And so that brings us to, I think it's number 4. So on the handout that everybody has received, the wealth secret number 4 is wealth is not money, it is creating value. And when a person knows that wealth is inside out, then they'll feel wealthy, even if their bank account is bottoming out, because it's not money. There's a lot of wealthy people, financially wealthy people, rich people who feel poor. So it's not money. It is the ability to create value. And that's secret number 4 in that handout. That the essence is being able to find and create things that produce value for you and others. So anyone who does not know how to really value whatever they're experiencing has just lost the sense of wealth or richness.
Oh wow, that's mind-boggling. That's mind-boggling. So let's say, for example, I'm out there playing with my grandchildren, and I can feel that sense of joy and love playing with them. So
Yeah,
accepting that that's my wealth.
exactly.
Ah,
Yeah. And you just now mentioned two more signs of wealth.
oh,
Money obviously is a sign of wealth. Joy is a sign that you're wealthy inside, mentally and emotionally, and love.
oh.
Because if you don't love what you're doing, I mean, how many people go to work, they don't love what they're doing, they hate it, they're waiting until the weekend.
Mhm.
So those are 3 good benchmarks that you're wealthy.
Okay, so this definition is uh, goes way beyond what most people think, because personally,
Yeah.
before I attended your program on the Inside Out Wealth, I was measuring my wealth from the financials, and at that time, my financials were not much to shout about, and I was really feeling unwealthy at that
Mm.
particular point in time until you came with this definition. So, so would this be something that for people who need to be wealthy, would this be something that they need to know? The first thing that they need to know about wealth.
Well, that's always where I start in the trainings.
Mm-hmm.
And as you just mentioned, many people through the process we do in the training discover that they're much wealthier than they thought. So, are you wealthy if you don't have time to do what you want to do? So, here's wealth in time.
Mm-hmm.
So, how many people are doing 8-hour jobs, 10, 12-hour jobs every day of the week, and they don't have time to be with their loved ones, play with their grandchildren, to do what they want to do a project, take care of their health. So, how much does time cost?
Okay.
Health. If you don't have your health, are you wealthy? So, how many people ruin their health trying to get rich financially and they're not wealthy? And how much do you have to buy back your health once you've destroyed it?
Mm-hmm.
So if we start looking at the dimensions of wealth, mental wealth, emotional wealth, even linguistic, do you have a wealthy vocabulary,
Mm-hmm.
a rich vocabulary, so that you can articulate and describe your mental model of the world? There's wealth in time, wealth in health, wealth in relationships. So if we start there, then we can get the money out of our eyes. And here's one of the real paradoxes of wealth creation. You've got to get the money out of your eyes so that you can see what true wealth is, and then start to build that. Then the money will come.
So again, Michael, can you please explain that part? Get the money out of your eyes. So what's happening there?
Well, people limit the definition of wealth to just finances,
Okay.
and then they set the goal for finances. And if that's the symptom, if that's the benchmark or the result of wealth, then they're focusing on a symptom rather than the true thing.
Oh wow. So that's why when you mentioned just now that because when people have money as wealth, they sacrifice their health in order to get the money. By the time that they have the money, they have lost their health and they have to use. So because they
Yeah.
had money in their eyes, so they need to take that out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They overvalue that symptom,
Mm-hmm.
the money, they overvalue it, and and they define it only by that, then that leads to all sorts of real misbeliefs about money. How many people have heard you've got to dress your way to wealth? If you look wealthy, wealth will come to you. So when I was doing the Inside Out Wealth trainings in London and Paris and some other places in Europe, this was a common thing. People had heard this statement that you've got to play the part of the wealthy person, wearing the brand clothes and all that, and that if you look the part, then the wealth will come. It'll attract. And so I remember one man in London who came walking in. He must have walked in with a $1,500 suit, and a sachet that he carried must have been a $300 or $400 one. Come looking in, and then later on when we talked about frugality and we talked about the process of how you actually build wealth and giving as part of the process of it, he said he didn't have any money. He had spent it all on the looks and had no money and was deeply in debt.
So that as you described that, it sounds to me like fake it until you make it kind of mantra.
Yeah, and not doing it with a real thing, not doing it with, because I asked him, what value are you giving to people? Because if you can't answer that question, you can't build wealth. What value are you giving? People will give you money if you are giving them something that's worth their money. And so you've got to give value. So what is the value that you're giving? And if you give more value, then it's going to be worth more to the market.
So it's so when we talk about creating wealth, it's about that value. So if I want to create wealth for myself, then I want to be able to give that value. Only then it will start to flow back. Is that it?
Right. Oh. You can then build your business around the value that you give. Every business exists because someone has a want or a need. They need something, food or shelter or whatever. They want something. And if you can provide that value to them, then the market works. There's the supply and demand. If what you're giving nobody wants, nobody has a need for, nobody has a want, they don't desire it, then you don't even have a market. So how can you build a business? So to build a business, that is the expression of how you develop the value that you're giving.
Okay, so going back to what I've mentioned earlier, that the thing about wealth is that we want to be wealthy. Many people want to be wealthy. When I conduct training programs, I ask people, how many of you want to be happy, healthy? And when I say, how many of you want to be wealthy? And people put up both hands up. And yet, not many people get to be wealthy. So what gives? So what's holding them back? What's preventing them from doing that?
Okay. One of the things we do in the training is to look at the singularity. Okay. If we take three things, your talent, your skills, your competence, what you can do that's going to add value, and then your love for it, your passion for it, you care about it, and then a economic engine. So how will you translate that into people's lives? If you take that singularity and draw three circles, the place where the three meet will be probably the place that's where your business could make financial wealth for you. With talent, then you're doing what you do best. And you're developing. You're becoming more valuable. You're becoming rich in mind and emotion. You're becoming rich in what you can do, your skills. So talent and skills and competencies. So going through some kind of a strength analysis, what are you good at? What can you do? And that when you do it, people want that. They want product you create. They want the information you create. They want the experience you give them. The love, the passion, is what makes it not work. Because if you love it, then you would have the attitude, I would pay to have this experience. So, because I love it, and keeping one's passion up. Because once you lose the passion, then it's just work, and then the value of it decreases because it's harder now, and it's more stressful. And then the economic engine is where does this need or value connect in my society, and create that market and develop that market. So that would be the overall strategy, finding your singularity. And for most of us, it takes many years to really find our singularity. And until then, we have a job. And that's a great place to begin, because you could learn how to develop different skills and talents, and you could manage your attitude to love the job, even if you hate it, even if it's not your long-term lifestyle. You could have a good attitude anyway, knowing that it's a stepping stone. But if you hate it and are bitter and are resentful and trudge in every day, you're not a good employee. And so when you run a business and you're looking for employees, you just demonstrated the worst.
Okay. So could that be also one of the reasons why people are not creating wealth in their lives, because they are just complaining about what they are doing? They hate their jobs, they hate their bosses, they hate the company that they're working in. They're just waiting for the weekend so that they can vegetate in front.
Well, exactly.
Okay.
I tell the story in the book, Inside Out Wealth, of a young man I met in Montreal, Mexico. And he was 28. He didn't have enough money. The sponsor allowed him to come to the training in hope that he would eventually pay off the training fee. So he came, and at one of the breaks, he told me that he had never had a job that lasted more than 6 months. And I was surprised. My eyebrows raised too. And I said, what's going on? He said, he keeps getting fired. And I said, well, okay, tell me about getting fired. He said, well, the supervisor is always so stupid, such an idiot. And I said, every 6 months, we're talking about 16 bosses, and everyone is stupid. Everyone is an idiot. And he was going, yeah, I know better than them.
Okay.
And then he said he had never had a raise. Never once in his life had been given a raise. So the challenge I gave him was, I want you to go to work and pretend that you own this business. At the time, he was working frontline staff in a auto supply business. Just people come in, say they wanted windshield wipers. He'd go get windshield wipers. And so he was just a clerk. And I said, pretend you own this business. If you were the owner, what would you do? And so he went in with the eyes of an owner, and eyes of someone who I'm responsible for making this business work. Much later, he had written me an email and said that when he did that, he started looking at, is it clean or not clean? Is it neat or is it sloppy? And then wanting to greet the people who walked in and thank them that they're doing business. Well, it completely changed his attitude. And 6 months later, he wrote and he said, I haven't been fired. In fact, I got my first raise. He was 28 and a half when he got his first raise. And just every 3 or 4 months, he would write to me. He said, I got another raise. I got another raise. Once he took on the attitude, it's not my business, but if it was, how would I respond? How would I act? Because that was his internship for being a business owner.
So nothing on the outside changed. He changed what's on the inside, and then what's on the outside begin to change.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, to answer your question, why don't most people create the wealth that they could and they want to create, is because of their attitude. And so having a wealthy attitude and a willingness to go through the process, because here's another misbelief about wealth. Wealth takes 10 years. It's not created instantly. It's not created quickly. It takes a strategy, it takes a process, and people have to walk through that process.
Okay, so that goes against what the gurus are telling out there, that you can have your wealth right now. It's in this instant. It doesn't
Yeah.
require hard work. So, what gives?
Yeah. Well, we want to hear that.
Okay.
But no mastery ever is quick. Doctors don't become masterful doctors in 6 months. You know, they go through their 3 years of internship and then their years of practice, and after 8 or 10 years, they're beginning to know how to become a medical physician. So mastery takes time. I would not want to fly an airplane where the pilot got a weekend 3-day certificate for flying a plane. I want that person to have studied aerodynamics and know his business inside out.
So when you use the word mastery, that's when things begin to clear up. Because when we talk about creating wealth, you need to have mastery in the area of wealth. Only then you can create it.
Right.
Yeah. So is it difficult to learn, be proficient, and master it?
Well, let's just break it down. It'll demystify it.
Okay.
A master over your talents and skills. Mastering your attitude, mastering your ability to be passionate and loving what you do, and then mastering the market. Given this, what is my market? What do they want? What would add extra value to it? Who is in that market? What is missing in that market? How can I add and differentiate myself in that market? And so, yeah, mastery in those 3 areas.
So the moment you begin to list those things down, then I'm mentally noticing, okay, that I can learn that, I can learn that, but it's going to take me time to really be proficient in those.
Yeah.
So that is something that I would say will give people hope that they can learn and master this thing called creating wealth.
Yeah. So the attitude of wealth creation, if wealth creation occurs over a decade, if it takes a period of time, then there's stages of it. So in the handout that we sent, that you cannot, number 3, you cannot create wealth quickly. There's stages to it, and the page after that is a timeline. And the timeline is the preparation, finding your singularity, then collaborating with others. Because here's another principle: wealth is never created alone. Wealth is always with others. A few years ago, on Forbes Fortune 500 club group, Bill Gates was the wealthiest person in the United States. Paul Allen was the second one. He was his vice president. The third one was another vice president of Microsoft. And the fourth one was another vice president of Microsoft. So Bill Gates didn't do it alone. He made others wealthy with him. So a great question is, who are you going to make wealthy?
Oh, wow. Wow, that's a big one. Because we tend to, when we think about wanting to be wealthy, we tend to think of, I want to be wealthy. And the moment you ask that question, who do you want to make to be wealthy? That's a big wow for me.
Who will you bring along with you? And you, in a collaborative partnership, that you're not getting all of it. you need other people and collaborate. So businesses operate collaboratively. And when people think collaboratively, then that helps them now to expand their business. A person who doesn't, then they're in a competitive mode with everybody, even their customers.
Mm. Mm. Okay, so that's another skill that I need to have to be collaborative with the people around me. Mm.
So with the collaboration, now you're ready to start a business. So the next stage of wealth creation would be launching a business, beginning it. And then the stage after that is developing the business. And then once you get to that stage and the business is on its own and it's creating uh, passive income, now you got money to invest. So then you'd be at the investment stage.
Mm-hmm.
So there are stages to it, and stages now bring up two other things. People get discouraged at different stages because everything doesn't always work out. We have our setbacks, we have um, knockdowns, the economy. There's a virus, you can't go to work, so there's setbacks. So now a person needs to be able to use the setbacks, learn from the setbacks, and be resilient. If a person isn't resilient, they get knocked down, they stay down, and then it's over.
So that's another skill that is required of a wealth builder.
I made a quotation in the book, and it's in the training manual as well, from Napoleon Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Napoleon Hill, way back at the beginning of the 20th century, interviewed many of the wealth giants, the people who own monopolies. And after he had spent 20 years interviewing all these billionaires at the beginning of the 20th century, he said he could find nothing in common except one thing: persistence.
Oh wow. Okay. So
He said
persist.
the only reason for their massive wealth, and he was talking finances, was they just persisted. They found their area and they just stayed with it.
So that is another requisite for creating wealth, to be persistent in what you do. Okay.
Yeah. So it's much more complex than just do one simple thing and then it happens. There's multiple skills, multiple states of mind, multiple states of emotion in all of the process going through it. And that's probably answers the question also, why do a lot of highly talented, intelligent, passionate people not be able to make it? Well, they need to have all those pieces in alignment and know where they are and keep learning. Just keep learning. Here's the next skill that's going to refine this and update it so that they stay current with whatever's going on.
So as you are saying that, one thing that came in my mind is that we are used to getting things simplified for us. We live in an age of the instant noodle kind of thing. Everything simplified, and our penchant for simplifying things, could that be the one that's preventing us from learning all the complexities involved in wealth creation?
Right. Yeah, I think that's why people don't persist, because they assumed it's going to be simple. And while it's not rocket science, it does take ongoing learning. Because as the markets change and as events occur, the person who can learn and keep learning and unlearning will stay current. And so that's that feedback loop. What I'm doing, is it working? How well is it working? What's not working? What could work better? So that feedback loop is what keeps us refining and tuning things.
So that part on unlearning, what do we need to unlearn?
Well, it could be any of these myths about wealth. Might need to unlearn that. we might need to unlearn different limiting beliefs that hold us back from resilience or persistence, or attitude development, collaboration. So it just depends on what is undermining the effectiveness to unlearn that. I was thinking of the person who created Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
That what he did in those early years, every single week he went out to his competitors and he would go to their stores to see how they're stocking the stores, how they're presenting it, and so he would go in, Sam Walton,
Mm-hmm.
and look at, oh, here's something else we could do.
Oh.
That's that fresh eyes learning. That's that never assuming I know it all.
Okay.
And just constantly refining. And it was through 20 years of refinement that he finally was able to create the Walmart industry.
Okay. Wow. So what else? The 10 secrets that you talk about. So what else that you're able to share with us in the time that we have together? It's getting very juicy.
Well, the key is, and that's why I named the title of the book, Inside Out Wealth,
Mm-hmm.
as you've mentioned, that it's inside out. Once a person knows that, then wealth can be created out of anything. I mean, when you think about the computer industry and Microsoft, we're talking about building things on pieces of sand, the silicon.
Okay.
So who would have eyes to go out and look at a beach and look at trillions of dollars?
Wow.
You know, so wealth is a perception, and if you can see human needs and wants, you can see there's a million possibilities of creating wealth. And wealth is one of these things that the more you create, the more you have.
Mm.
So unlike tangible things that there's resources and then you get the end of the resource, there's just no more of that. Wealth is not like that. The more I learn and the more I give, the more I have. The more love I develop and give, the more I have.
Mm.
And so if wealth is seeing, creating, developing value for myself and for others, then it is a area of abundance rather than scarcity. And people who have a scarcity mentality, it's one of the first things they're going to have to unlearn to get out of that scarcity mentality. You know, think about the energy field, the field of whether it's gas and oil exploration, whether it's solar or whatever. It's said that just a few miles of the sun on planet Earth, if we could harvest that energy, we could supply all the energy for the whole planet from just a couple miles of sun ray. So here's abundance. Now, the question is, how do we harvest it? How do we mine it? It's going to take intelligence, creativity, innovation. And that's how wealth is created, by people who are looking for how can we turn this this thing which looks like a nothing into an asset. And when you have that question, how can I turn this nothing into an asset? Then you'll start to become a wealth creator. We call that being able to see opportunities.
Mm.
And so another word for that is creativity. So creative people can just see all kinds of opportunities.
Mm.
The next one is seizing the opportunity, how to translate that and mine that into wealth.
So seeing and seizing that opportunity. Okay. Good.
So I have to at least include a little bit about frugality.
Oh, yes. And That's a big one for me. So go ahead.
In the book, The Millionaire Mind, chapter 1 is titled with 3 words. And chapter 1 is titled Frugality, Frugality, Frugality.
Okay.
That's in the book, The Millionaire Mind by Thomas Stanley. And the reason they started that is that at first, when you're beginning your wealth creation, you've got to you've got to manage tightly the expenditure of money, because otherwise you could just spend way too much on things that's not going to have good return of value. That's frugality. The word frugality, you can even hear it, fruitful. And it comes from a Latin term and a Spanish term, which talks about fruitfulness and internal joy.
Fruitfulness and internal joy.
So the question that is we usually ask about frugality is the stuff that you have, how much joy to stuff, what is the joy to stuff ratio that you have?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the exercises we do in the training, and you've probably done this, is go look in your closets. What stuff do you have that you're getting no joy out of? And just go through and do an index of your whole house. How much joy out of this stuff? So if you have, one of the quotations is, if you have 10 dresses and you feel like you have nothing to wear, you're not wealthy.
Okay.
You know, you're poor.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have 3 dresses and you feel like I get joy from every one, then you're wealthy. So frugality is a high joy to stuff ratio. And it's the beginning place, because then you don't need stuff to feel rich. You can feel rich with little because you're seeing value.
And as you are saying that, Michael, what comes to mind is that that could also be one of the reasons that's making that's preventing people from being wealthy, because we live in a society where excess is being sought for luxury. Yeah. Having the latest handphone, the latest gadget, the newest car. So that's the culture that we're living in. And what you're describing is basically the millionaire mind. Their culture is counter to what modern culture is.
Yeah. And I would recommend the book, The Millionaire Mind. When they wrote that, they were researchers at Yale, I think, and they were trying to find out, where do the rich people live? And their assumption was, well, in the gated communities way out in the suburbs, and that's where the rich people, because they certainly look rich. And what they found out was that the average millionaire in the United States, when they wrote that book, lived in a 25-year-old house, drove a 10-year-old car, shopped at Sears, just a medium level place, not a fancy shop. And so they realized that the millionaire mind did not put it up on the latest gadgets and the latest cars and the look of it. And so the millionaire mind really exploded that myth about it. Over the years, I've invested in real estate, just little by little here and there. And one of the things I noticed 15, 20 years ago was that I would drive up to the rental properties I have, and out in front would be new cars, maybe a boat, maybe this. I mean, they were just spending. I drive up in my 22-year-old car, and they've got a brand new car sitting, and I own it. They rent. Many times I had conversations. They would say, well, how do you own things? Well, I don't buy brand new cars.
Okay.
I don't buy all these toys that you got, the boats and the and whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, well, life is too short. I need to spend it, enjoy it now.
Okay. So
Wow.
so what's that mindset? I need to spend and enjoy it now. So what's that mindset? Because it sounds to me a mindset is counter to being wealthy.
Yeah, it's that short-term pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
It's that immediate gratification instead of looking for long-term gratification, long-term sustainability of the wealth creation.
And that's the word that to me in the current context, the crisis, sustainability is critical because uh, as we enter this crisis, many people experience it in different ways. Uh,
Mm.
and what I'm noticing is that when people do not have that solid financial foundation, they find it
Yeah,
very difficult to sustain their living in this crisis.
yeah. So I don't know what it is in Malaysia or in parts of Asia. It's probably much better than here in the States because
Mm.
we've got such a short-term, immediate gratification problem here. Here, most people have very little savings. So I don't know the percentage now, but something like 60% of people live paycheck to paycheck. So all they have to do is have one crisis, miss one check, and they're in trouble. They don't have any saving, budgeting, planning so that they could handle 2 months. Uh, and so here's another aspect of the discipline of frugality at the beginning, making sure you've got that plan B, plan C, so that if things go south, you're okay
Mm.
and you don't have to be desperate. Being desperate is what drives people to really unproductive and counterproductive behavior.
So when you mentioned that, one of my our guests a couple of nights ago, he was using the term emergency relief fund. That if we want to be able to sustain ourselves, we need to have that. And probably the people who uh, went into immediate suffering right now is that they don't have that fund anymore. So people who are wealthy, they create that emergency relief fund because that will give them sustainability through their habit of frugality instead of excessive spending.
I think it was Tony Robbins who came up with 70-30.
Okay.
Use 70% of your income to sustain lifestyle, save 10% for the rainy day, 10% for learning, for developing your own skills and competencies, trainings, and then 10% to give away.
Mm.
So giving to charity, giving to people who truly need. And so I think those were his numbers. Save 10 every time so that you're building up that emergency fund.
Mm.
The 10% for training and learning. So you invest in yourself. So self-investment. In fact, I think it was Stanley Thomas in the Millionaire Mind who said, if you're going to invest, I think he said $60,000. He said the best investment is your education because developing your talent is what creates the value. And then the 10% giving away or investing in causes that you believe in, it sends that message, I've got plenty.
Ah,
I'm
okay.
and then it helps a person to relax in knowing that um, um, the money will come.
So another thing thought that comes to mind when you mention about the stages. As I went through the program that you taught in Manila at that time, I attended that program. The thing that struck me was when people don't realize that there are stages to wealth creation, everything gets all mixed up together when they do not yet are not yet strong in the foundation. They are busy going into risky investments and all that. So can you just explain a little bit more about the stages to wealth creation?
Yeah. So yeah. So taking the stages, um, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, um, I'll think of his name in a second.
Robert
Um,
Kiyosaki.
Robert Kiyosaki came up with the four quadrants,
Okay.
which I think is an insightful one. The four quadrants on the far right would be where we all start, we get a job.
Mhm.
So now we have a salary. Someone pays us for our time.
Mhm.
So when I work for someone, I can't use my time for what I want to do. I'm committing my time, my energy, my effort to them. So I'm an employee. We Many of us get tired of being an employee. I'm sick and tired of being limited to this amount of money and this amount of time. So we want to be self-employed,
Mhm.
and that's still on the right side. Now I get paid for my time, but I'm the boss of me,
Mhm.
and now I've got to discipline me and manage me and do my self-leadership.
Mhm.
But still, it's all based upon my time for money. So then he has the left side of the quadrant, and there's the business owner and then the investment. And so once we move over there, instead of us work for money, which is the right side,
Mhm.
money works for us. And so now there's the subject of passive income, that I've created something and it has a life of its own. The momentum is moving. And even when I'm sleeping or I'm on vacation, I'm making money, or money is working for me. And so thinking of that big divide, do I work for money or am I getting my money to work for me, really separates two stages, the, some of the biggest stages of financial wealth creation.
So another thing that comes to mind is that in wanting to create wealth, there is this fad of looking for that silver bullet, looking for that one secret that makes me rich. So I'd like you to just comment on that.
Well, and that is a big myth. And um, here in the States, we have lotteries. And I'm sure that around the world, there's lotteries now. Millions and millions of dollars can be won by buying a ticket. And suddenly you come into a lot of money. A lot of the research on the lottery winners is that at first they are just excited with all this money and they quit their job. And 3 years later, I think something like 70% of them are broke
Mm.
because they don't know how to handle their money. And they don't know how to handle all the people who want their money, the uncles and nieces and grandpas and everybody who thinks that they have now direct access to that lottery win.
Okay.
And the person doesn't know how to say no or doesn't know how to manage it well.
Mhm.
And that there was a book published here in Colorado on the lottery about lottery
Mhm.
winners. And 90% of them said it was the worst thing that ever happened to them, coming into that big amount of money was the worst thing that ever happened, because now they couldn't trust anybody. Are you after my money?
Okay.
So that big instant silver bullet, get rich quick, fast track to success, most people can't handle it. Most people don't handle it well if it does occur.
So again, we are coming almost to the end of the of our conversation. So, what is again, if you can just highlight, is there a structure to creating wealth, and what is that structure?
So the structure, if wealth is inside out,
Mhm.
if wealth is holistic, it's mental wealth, emotional wealth, relational wealth, verbal wealth, behavioral. I can perform, I can make things happen. and then financial, and then I've got time, and I've got health. If wealth is holistic and it's inside out, then the strategy is build the inside wealth first. Get a abundance mentality, get a mentality, an executive mentality that looks at the world in a creative way, with creative eyes, looking for opportunities, and then begin there. Prepare yourself first to be. You have to be wealthy to get wealthy.
Mm. So in Neuro-Semantics, we talk about we communicate from state to state. We lead from state to state. So what are the most resourceful states for creating wealth?
Well, it would be belief in yourself,
Mm-hmm.
belief in your value as a person. I can add value
Mm-hmm.
in this way or that way, in this context or that context. In fact, actually, that would be a nice little beginning exercise for anyone. Any and every situation you're in, how can I add wealth?
Mm.
If I'm just at dinner with some friends, at a, just at a restaurant with some friends having a dinner, how can I add wealth? How can I make this a richer experience for everybody? Just that mentality. So every conversation, how can I make this conversation richer, fuller, memorable? Um, and so it's that attitude that begins the whole process.
So the attitude of wanting to create something better out there, some value. So if I'm interacting with you now, so the attitude is what is it that I can do that will make it valuable to you?
Right. And so when we go to the word value and turning it into a verb, valuing,
Mm-hmm.
when I value something, whatever that is, I'm appreciating it. I'm seeing its preciousness. I'm looking at the inside and honoring whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Geraldine and I took a walk in the National Monument, which is part of Grand Junction, Colorado here, yesterday. And as we walked into the canyons, and just from time to time, we would just stop and just look to appreciate, to recognize. We came upon a canyon that was way off the beaten track. We walked 5 miles to see it. And my comment was, this is a canyon, and all that we're looking at now, no one can see this unless they make this 5 mile track. And to me, it was a way of appreciating, here's something special. And the ability to see life as special is the beginning place.
Wow. To see life is special. So, so when you mentioned about the national monuments, I remember that that was one of the places that I visited when I was there. So when you mentioned that you went down a track 5 kilometers, and you could feel the preciousness of the place, and that struck a chord in me because I drove and stopped and walked only a few hundred meters. So what you experienced was a wealthy experience that I didn't experience. So that's what wealth, be able to value whatever experience that you are in.
Right, right. When you do that, then you can become a creator, a solution developer. People buy solutions.
Mm.
So whatever product or information or experience, it's a solution to something. And being able to look at the world and look at, what could this solve? What problem could this solve? And one of the things I haven't mentioned is that wealth creators, as entrepreneurs, they love problems.
Okay.
They love problems. Problems, every problem is just money dropping out of heaven. Because who gets paid the most? The person who can solve the biggest problem.
Mhm.
So we've got to change. We've got to unlearn problems are bad. I hate problems. We've got to learn that when someone brings us a problem, go, oh my God, thank you. And every entrepreneur loves that. If we look at what Elon Musk is doing with his SpaceX and, the problem of getting to Mars, talk about a big, but he's going after it.
Yeah, yeah. And when he first started with the space program, I believe that millions of people think that he was crazy. After 18 years, he showed that it can be done. So that's probably the difference in the inside out of a wealthy person and a non-wealthy person. A non-wealthy person looks at the problem and say, that's a problem. Whereas a wealthy person looks at the problem, wow, an opportunity for me.
Yeah.
Wow. So it starts from the inside going out.
I struggled with that when I first started having my rental properties because I had the old attitude that when everybody called me or sent me an email and said this is leaking, here's some water damage, here's this, here's that, it was like, oh my God, I'm going to spend more money. What am I going to do? I got to find a plumber. I got to find an electrician. Eventually, I realized every time I solve their problem, I become more valuable to them. And I learn a lot. I've learned a lot about managing those properties because I take the problem. Okay, how can we solve it? So I don't jump up and down for joy when the problem comes, but I certainly don't have an oh no attitude. And most of the problems now that come, I've solved it before. So it's just a matter of doing this or doing that.
Okay. So I'm waiting to see if any of the audience wants to send in some more questions. So I'm not noticing any questions yet. So if you have any question, just put it there. However, at this point in time, I just want to ask Michael a question that you started off modeling the modeling of wealth creation. That's how you came out with the Inside Out wealth book. So as you modeled and you applied it to yourself to create wealth for yourself, what would you say your biggest challenge, your biggest problem in implementing that in your life?
Well, the first one was probably my attitude about money. I grew up with a father who, anytime the three of us boys in the house said we wanted something, he would say, do you think that money grows on trees? That was his way of saying there's not enough money. Now, if I knew what I know today, and when I was 5 years old and said I want some skates or something, and he said, do you think money grows on trees? I would probably say, that's where it comes from. Let's go get some trees. But that was his way. So he operated from scarcity.
Okay.
It made sense in his world. He went through the Great Depression, the 1930s. So he lived in a world of scarcity. And he developed that scarcity mentality and was always scared of losing money. Well, that was my attitude when I began.
Okay.
I was so afraid of making the wrong choices and everything. And the thing is that what you fear tends to be what you manifest. And I made it a lot worse because I was afraid at the very beginning. Until I started realizing that it's not about money, it's about investing value. And once I realized I can give value, I can invest value, the money will come. And then losing that fear.
Wow. So that's a big one, the attitude about money. Okay. So probably the other question that I just want to ask now is that under the current situation where people are out of jobs, many people are out of jobs. I think in the States now it's 40 million people who file for unemployment. So under the current situation, how do I begin to be wealthy and begin to create wealth in my life? So what are specific steps, one or two specific steps that I can take right now in order to feel that wealth and begin to be creating wealth?
So this is where I'll end on the same thing we started with. What's most essential is training and education. Because if wealth comes from inside, then developing the inside. And if a person is at home, they've got opportunity to read, to study. There's so much on the internet. They don't even have to spend money to buy books. On Neurosemantics.com, we've got 8,000 pages of information. So investing in self is step number one. A lot of people, another mistake I didn't make it, but it's one that a lot of people make, is that my value is based upon my money. I'm an important person if I have so much money. So my self-esteem is then conditioned upon money, which means self-esteem is up and down, according to the bank account.
Okay.
And so once we get rid of that, unlearn that, I'm a valuable human being, precious. And so my value is a given. Now it's not based on money. I can feel valuable being in debt. If you don't break that, then it's awful hard to start.
Okay.
And if things are really, really tight right now, and you're just living on contributions from the food bank, then valuing yourself. This is just a temporary circumstance. This does not define me. My value, my worth is a given, is unconditionally valuable, and I refuse to let it be based upon amount of finances.
Okay. So even if my current condition is such that I need to rely on food bank in order to survive, I am no less valuable as a person. So I can still bring the value, whatever value that I can bring out from here. Wow, that's wonderful. Okay, so coming almost to the end here, I do not want to hold you from your breakfast. Now, what one or two words that you would like to say to the viewers here before we end this interview?
Well, wealth is holistic. We need to separate wealth from money. Money is just the sign, just the symbol of wealth and not wealth. Real wealth is seeing, developing, creating value of self, value of what we offer to other people. And once you know that, then you can really begin the process and becoming rich in mind and emotion and speech. You're a wealthy person and you exude wealth, and the money will follow.
Thank you. So finally, before we end, if there are any of the people who are watching this interview and wanting to know more about what it is that you do and how they can get more information with respect to creating wealth. So,
well, the Neuro-Semantic website would be a great place. There's articles on wealth creation there. A person could get the book, Inside Out Wealth. There are neurosemantic trainers all around the world who train the Inside Out Wealth. And so there's meta coaches who can coach a person through the process. It is very individualistic because everybody has to answer the question, what is the value? What is my talent or skill? What's my passion? And now how can I integrate that? So meta coaches all around the world, there's nearly 4,000 around the world, could coach a person through that process to finding their singularity.
So the website Neuro-Semantics.com is where they can go to get more information. Okay, so Michael, so I really appreciate your being here. What you have shared with us is of great value. And I'm just noticing the comments that you are not able to see. So I'll just mention that there are comments from the viewers about how the value that they are getting from this interview. And just to mention, especially to the viewers, that we have viewers not just in Malaysia. We have people from Indonesia. I notice Hong Kong. I'm noticing Brazil. I'm also noticing Egypt in the audience today. So they say that they love you, Michael, and also Geraldine. So again, thank you very much. Really appreciate your being so generous with your time. Yes, Geraldine, if we can see you on the screen. Oh, yes, I forgot to mention Australia. So that's Geraldine. Geraldine. So with that, thank you very much. And to the audience this evening, oh, we've got from Lebanon as well. So to the audience in this evening, my heartfelt thanks to you for being here, whether for one interview or for all the 8 interviews. I hope that you have gained something that is useful for yourself, something that you can take and use and create greater value in your life, because that is what wealth creation is all about. So this is the final interview in the series, and I hope that there will be more to come. However, for the time being, this is the end of the series. So borrowing the words of Rascal Flatts, I will say that my wish for you is that this life becomes all that you want it to. May your dreams stay big. May your worries stay small, and all the troubles do not fall too much on your shoulders. So with that, thank you and God bless to all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.